A mysterious arrival. The schoolyard was alive with chatter, laughter, and the rhythmic pounding of sneakers against pavement as students rushed toward the entrance. The air smelled of freshly cut grass mixed with the distant scent of cafeteria pizza. It was a morning like any other until he arrived. A boy, no older than 16, stepped off the rusted school bus, his expression unreadable. His dark hair was neatly combed, his clothes clean but clearly secondhand, and a battered black backpack hung from his shoulders. His sneakers, though well-maintained, bore evidence of repair, as if they had walked more miles than they were meant to. Arvin took a deep breath. This was his fourth school in 3 years. His father's job had forced their family to relocate from city to city, leaving Arvin with little time to make friends or call any place home. But he wasn't here to make friends. He was here to survive. And survival meant one thing: staying invisible. A shadow in the hallways. The school hallways were a maze of metal lockers, bulletin boards covered with faded flyers, and the ever-present smell of cheap cleaning detergent. Arvin walked with measured steps, his gaze fixed ahead, ignoring the curious glances thrown his way. "New kid alert," someone muttered. "Where do you think he's from?" Another voice whispered. He had heard it all before. The speculation, the assumptions, the silent judgments. They were as routine as the first bell of the day. He paid them no mind. When he entered the homeroom, the teacher, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, gestured toward him. "Class, we have a new student today. Please welcome Arvin de Vera. He's joining us from—" Arvin cleared his throat, cutting her off gently. "Just moved here." He had learned from experience that details only made things worse. The fewer words he spoke, the easier it was to fade into the background. The teacher nodded, though a flicker of curiosity passed across her face. "All right, Arvin, you can take the empty seat in the back." As he walked past rows of students, he felt it, the piercing gaze of someone studying him too closely. He turned his head slightly and locked eyes with a boy in the farthest corner. A towering figure with broad shoulders, messy blonde hair, and an unmistakable air of arrogance. Chase. A flicker of amusement danced in Chase's eyes as he leaned toward his friend. "Another one," he murmured with a smirk. Arvin had seen his kind before. Bullies always had a way of sniffing out the quiet ones. First contact. The morning passed without incident. Arvin remained silent, taking notes, blending into the shadows. But he knew better than to assume his presence had gone unnoticed. Lunchtime proved him right, as he navigated the bustling cafeteria, balancing a tray with a modest portion of rice and chicken adobo. His mother's way of keeping a piece of home with him. He found an empty table in the farthest corner. He had barely taken his first bite when a shadow loomed over him. Well, look who's eating alone," a voice sneered. Arvin didn't need to look up to know who it was. Chase, Trevor and Kyle, his ever-loyal sidekicks, stood behind him, grinning. "What's that smell? Did your mom pack you some roadkill?" Trevor snickered. Arvin calmly placed his fork down. He had two choices: ignore them or respond. He chose neither. Chase, annoyed by the lack of reaction, reached for Arvin's tray. "Let's see what's on today's menu." Before his fingers could make contact, Arvin moved. Fast, precise, unstoppable. In a single, controlled motion, he grabbed Chase's wrist and twisted it just enough to make the taller boy stumble forward, off balance. The tray remained untouched, but Chase's pride wasn't as lucky. For the first time, Chase looked genuinely surprised. His face twisted from amusement to something darker. "You're gonna regret that." Arvin let go, his expression unreadable. "Then don't test me." The cafeteria fell silent. All eyes were on them. Chase held his wrist, fury flashing in his eyes. This wasn't over. Arvin knew that, and for the first time he realized he hadn't just walked into a new school. He had walked into a battlefield. A storm brewing the rest of the day passed in tense anticipation. Arvin could feel the weight of Chase's glare in every class they shared. The whispers followed him, students marveling at how the quiet new kid had stood his ground. He didn't care about whispers. He cared about survival. And he knew survival wasn't about brute strength, it was about control. Knowing when to fight and when to walk away. But Chase wasn't the type to walk away. When the final bell rang, Arvin's instincts kicked in. He took the long way to his locker, avoiding the main hallways. He had just placed his books inside when a heavy force slammed the locker next to his. Chase stood there, arms crossed, Trevor and Kyle behind him like wolves ready to pounce. "Think you're tough, huh?" Chase growled. "Let's see how tough you really are." The halls had emptied. No teachers, no students, just them. Arvin tightened his grip on his backpack strap. He had been through this before, and he knew exactly how it would end. Part 2. The trap closes, the tension breaks. The hallway was silent except for the distant echo of lockers slamming shut. The last wave of students had already left, leaving Arvin alone with Chase and his two lackeys. The air between them was thick with unspoken challenges. Arvin kept his grip on his backpack strapped tight, his fingers pressing into the worn fabric. He had been through this before. Different faces, different schools, but the same confrontation. Chase wasn't the first bully to try and test him. Chase cracked his knuckles, taking a slow step forward. "What's wrong, tough guy? You were quick with your hands earlier. Let's see what you've got now." Trevor and Kyle exchanged smirks, circling in, cutting off any possible escape route. "I don't want trouble," Arvin said, his voice calm, steady. He had learned that a firm stance was often enough to make people hesitate. But Chase wasn't hesitating. "Too late," Chase sneered, lunging forward. "The fight begins." Arvin sidestepped the first punch effortlessly. Chase swung too wide, too slow. Arvin had seen this before, a street brawler trying to use brute force over skill. Kyle moved next, trying to grab Arvin's shoulder. Big mistake. Arvin twisted his body, catching Kyle's wrist and pulling him off balance. With one precise movement, he used Kyle's own momentum against him, sending him stumbling forward into the lockers with a loud clang. Trevor charged in, fist raised. Arvin barely moved. He waited until the last second, then dropped low and swept Trevor's legs from beneath him. Trevor hit the ground hard, gasping. Chase's face twisted with fury. He wasn't laughing anymore. This wasn't supposed to happen. "You little—" Chase lunged again, this time with everything he had. Arvin let out a breath and did what came naturally. He sidestepped, grabbed Chase's wrist, pivoted, and threw him over his shoulder. Hard. Chase hit the floor with a heavy thud, groaning in pain. The entire fight had lasted less than 20 seconds. The aftermath. Kyle was still clutching his wrist, Trevor groaning on the floor. Chase was on his back, staring at the ceiling, gasping for breath. Arvin stepped back, adjusting his backpack. He had nothing left to prove. A door at the end of the hallway creaked open. A teacher's voice rang out. "What's going on here?" Arvin turned, exhaling. "Here we go." Chase struggled to sit up, his face red with humiliation. He opened his mouth to speak, but something in Arvin's steady gaze made him stop. For the first time, Chase looked unsure. Trevor and Kyle exchanged glances. They knew the truth. They had been beaten. Badly. Arvin had seen this moment before, the moment a bully realized they weren't untouchable. The moment fear replaced arrogance. The teacher approached, looking between the fallen boys and Arvin. "Does someone want to explain?" Arvin remained silent. And then, to his surprise, Chase spoke first. Nothing. We just tripped. Trevor and Kyle looked at him in disbelief. But Chase wasn't looking at them. He was looking at Arvin. Arvin held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded slightly. No words needed. The teacher sighed. Get to class. Now. Arvin turned and walked away. As he did, he could feel Chase watching him, but this time it wasn't with hatred. It was something else. Respect. A new order word spread quickly. By the next morning, the whispers filled every hallway, every classroom. Chase had lost. For the first time in years, Lincoln High had changed. The unspoken rule that Chase ran the school had been broken. Some students still kept their distance from Arvin, wary, curious. But others, ones who had been on the receiving end of Chase's bullying, began to meet his gaze with something new. Hope. Arvin didn't care for the attention. He wasn't here to be a hero. He was just here to survive. But survival had taken on a new meaning now. Because, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the one being hunted. And that felt like something close to freedom. A new reality. The atmosphere in Lincoln High had shifted. The unchallenged rule of Chase had been broken, and in its place was something new: uncertainty. Arvin hadn't sought this. He didn't want to be feared, nor did he want admiration. But after the fight, his quiet presence carried an unspoken weight. Students who once ignored him now watched him as he walked by. Some nodded in respect. Others whispered about what had happened in the hallway. Chase, however, had changed the most. Gone was the cocky swagger, the self-assured grin. He still had his reputation, still had his lackeys, but he had lost something intangible: his absolute control over the school. And for the first time, he seemed aware that he wasn't untouchable. Still, Arvin knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Chase's dilemma. Chase sat in the empty locker room after practice, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The bruises on his arm were fading, but the sting of humiliation lingered. He had never lost before. Not like that. Not in front of the entire school. Trevor and Kyle hadn't said much since the fight. They were still on his side, but they had lost their certainty. If Arvin could beat Chase, what did that mean for them? Chase clenched his fists. He had to do something. But deep down, he wasn't sure if fighting Arvin again would end differently. An unfinished battle. The moment came sooner than expected. A week had passed since the fight, and Arvin had tried to keep his head down. But as he left school one evening, he found Chase waiting for him near the parking lot. Alone. The air between them was thick with unspoken words. You didn't finish it. Chase's voice was calm, but there was a dangerous edge to it. Arvin sighed. I don't need to fight you, Chase. Chase stepped closer, fists clenched. But I need to fight you. Arvin studied him for a moment, then slowly set his backpack down. If this was what it took to end it, so be it. Chase swung first, but this time it was different. There was no blind rage, no reckless lunging. This wasn't about proving dominance, it was about proving something to himself. Arvin dodged, deflected, countered, but he could tell Chase had improved. He was learning. Minutes passed, neither gaining the upper hand. And then, something shifted. Chase lowered his fists. Enough! Arvin straightened, watching as Chase exhaled heavily, rubbing his jaw where Arvin had landed a precise but controlled strike. For the first time, Chase wasn't looking at him as an enemy. He was looking at him as an equal. Respect earned. The next morning, whispers filled the hall again. But this time, there was no talk of humiliation, no rumors of revenge. Chase had changed. He still had his reputation, still carried himself with confidence, but something was different. He wasn't bullying anyone. For the first time in Lincoln High, the balance had shifted to something new, not ruled by fear, but by respect. Arvin had never wanted to be a leader, but in a way that's what he had become. Not because he had won a fight, but because he had ended a war. As he walked down the hall, Chase passed him going the opposite direction. They locked eyes. No words were spoken, but Chase gave him a slight nod, a silent truce. And for the first time since arriving at Lincoln High, Arvin felt something close to peace. The power of standing up for yourself. Arvin's journey at Lincoln High is more than just a story about standing up to bullies. It's a testament to the power of resilience, discipline, and quiet strength. He didn't seek conflict, nor did he crave attention. Yet, when pushed, he showed that true power doesn't always come from brute force but from knowing when to fight and when to walk away. In life, we often face people who try to bring us down, whether it's in school, the workplace, or social circles. Arvin's story reminds us that we don't have to meet aggression with aggression. Sometimes the most powerful response is controlled action, patience, and self-respect. What would you do if you were in Arvin's place? Bullies and their own battles. Chase's character development is another crucial aspect of this story. He started as a classic bully, overconfident, cruel, and controlling. But deep down, Chase was fighting his own battle. His need for dominance came from fear of losing control, fear of becoming insignificant. And when Arvin challenged him, Chase was forced to confront something he had never faced before: defeat. In reality, many bullies act out not because they are inherently bad people, but because they are struggling with something internally. This doesn't excuse their actions, but it reminds us that even those who seem the strongest have their own weaknesses. Chase's redemption arc in this story shows that even bullies can change, if given the right challenge and the right reason. Respect is earned, not taken. At the beginning of the story, Chase ruled the school through fear. By the end, he learned that true respect isn't about intimidation, but about mutual understanding. Arvin never sought to be a leader, yet his actions naturally led others to respect him. This is a powerful lesson for all of us. You don't have to be the loudest in the room to be heard. You don't have to demand respect to receive it. True strength comes from being confident in who you are and treating others with the same level of respect you expect. What can we learn from this? Arvin's story isn't just about martial arts or high school conflicts. It's about life. Here are a few key takeaways. Silence is powerful. You don't have to boast to prove your worth. Actions always speak louder than words. Strength is more than just fighting. Knowing when to fight and when to walk away is what separates strength from recklessness. Change is possible. Even those who seem set in their ways, like Chase, can grow when faced with the right challenge. Respect is earned, not forced. You don't gain respect by demanding it. You gain it by being true to yourself and standing by your values. Join the conversation. What do you think about Arvin's journey? Have you ever encountered a similar situation in real life? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or someone else? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Your support helps us continue creating content that entertains, educates, and inspires. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Hit the like button if you believe that true strength comes from within. Drop a comment and share your thoughts on this story. Share this video with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.